Thank you, and congratulations to the class of 2021. And a hearty thank you, Dr. Martine Haas, for your kind words and for inviting me to address the class. I've given a few talks in my life, and it's easy to give the customary spiel at the top about how honored you are without giving it much thought. So I want to slow down. I want to honor this moment. I want to honor you and the hard work you've done. I want to honor this institute and its legacy. At the same time, I want to speed up, and I want to honor Dr. Haas, who threatened to cut my hair off if I went 2 seconds over my time limit. So as I rush through this, I hope my experiences might give you something useful for the road ahead. A lot has changed since I was at Lauder, which celebrated its 10th year when I was on campus. Our class must have been special. We graced the cover of the Penn Alumni magazine, and the great Leonard Lauder himself spoke at our graduation. You guys can't boast that. You can boast Ronald, though. I guess this kind of makes me the Leonard Lauder of your era. And it also probably makes me the only person who was available to speak to you at 7 a.m. California time. Some things will never change. Lauder is still home to some of the best and brightest at Wharton. A global perspective rooted in a commitment to acting responsibly is as important as ever, maybe even more so now. And most importantly, Marcy is still the matriarch of Lauder. Her office was always filled with students who loved her. She was like your favorite, funny, no BS aunt. In fact, she Zoom bombed our reunion this past Friday and was as loving and as funny as she had been in 1996. Today, I want to share a few things that have benefited my life and career immensely. We are, in so many ways, the product of the people we encounter throughout our lives. I grew up in a town called Richmond, California, in a home that by virtue of its location in the neighborhood presented me with two very different sets of people with the potential to shape my life. If I left my home and walked to the left, I'd first go past Damon's house. Damon was at one time one of the biggest drug dealers in Berkeley. Next door to him was Shauna, who was physically devastated by the crack epidemic. Anthony and Angela lived 2 doors from her. They would both lose their lives to gun violence. But if I walked to the right, I'd run into the Anderson family. Mr. Anderson was the mayor of Richmond at one point. He marched alongside Dr. King on his only visit to our town during the civil rights movement. Mrs. Anderson would go on to be the mayor of Richmond and the first Black woman to be the mayor of a major city in California. Booker and Irma had 2 sons, Wilbert and Ahmad. I looked up to them and wanted to do whatever they did. Wilbert followed in his mother's footsteps to Dartmouth. When it came time for me to go to college, I did what I'd been doing for years. I emulated Wilbert and Ahmad. Dartmouth was the only school I applied to, early decision, and as fate would have it, I got in. Something that would have never been possible had Wilbert not done it before me and given me the confidence to believe that I could do the same. This would be the beginning of a pattern in my life. At every point along the way, I have benefited from seeing someone who had gone before me. I've seen the power of people to shape each other's lives for the better. I've learned that nothing, not money, not a good idea, is as important as people when it comes to building great businesses. That last part is important to me as an early stage investor. I have to determine, oftentimes before a product even exists, who will make it and who won't. There are an incredible number of things to consider when evaluating an investment. And the greatest predictor of success is the people at the center of the business. There are 3 things to look for. The first is tenacity over templates. I started investing during the first .com era. I've been working as an investment banker in San Francisco, but could feel the palpable energy of this new tech thing that was happening. And I wanted to be part of it. And so I did what I'd always done. I looked for the right people to be around. I moved into a loft condo in San Francisco where I knew a lot of these tech types would be living. I began hosting dinners where I'd bring people together to talk about what they were working on and give them a chance to connect with folks who could provide funding. I was in the elevator late one night, heading to my unit, and someone else walked in. We made small talk. I shared my bag of Doritos with him. We may or may not have had too much to drink. His name was Tony Shea. Tony and I would go on to become close friends. In fact, I just went to visit him in September before his sad and untimely death. May he rest in peace. Soon after, I would have the opportunity to be one of the first investors in a new company he was building. He sold shoes online. It was called Zappos. I didn't think selling shoes online was a good idea, and I told him as much. But I knew Tony. I knew his story. I knew his work ethic. He didn't fit the mold of the typical successful entrepreneur, but he was relentless. I could have looked at the opportunity and said, this doesn't fit the template of a good investment, but instead I put my trust in the tenacity of an entrepreneur I believed in. That's how I still approach investing today. I like to spend a lot of time getting to know the founders' stories beyond their resume. What I'm looking for is a thing in a founder's background that tells me how they will respond when things get tough. I'm looking for their story, looking for their tenacity. As a result, my fund, despite not prioritizing underrepresented founders or women, has an unusually high number of companies led by women and people of color, more than 50%. When the industry average is closer to 2%, it is so often the case that their life experience included some adversity. They've had to overcome some of the same challenges that I had. And as a result, they have cultivated the ability to push through things when things get tough. The second thing is passion over paper chasing. Now, don't get me wrong. I believe in making money and I want to invest in entrepreneurs who want to make money. But I've come to believe that making money is a byproduct of doing what you're passionate about. I always look for people who have a powerful connection to the work they are doing. They're motivated by some deep internal source to solve a problem. One founder I backed, instead of college, in fact, spent 4 years in prison. I could have looked at his lack of experience as a reason not to invest, but his passion for the work was undeniable. While his company, Pigeonly, which helps connect families and friends to their incarcerated loved ones, is now thriving, Frederick often questioned it financially if it was the right thing to continue. But he was not building Pigeonly just to make money. He was doing it because he knew that connection to loved ones was meaningful and that it changed outcomes. The third thing I look for is perspective over everything. This past year has been a reminder of the importance of perspective. Each of us, in the face of a crisis, has had to evaluate what is important. When I was at Wharton, if I'm honest, making money was a primary focus. A broader rethinking of the role of business in society had not yet taken place. And so even as we were learning to think globally and act responsibly, we were still early in our conception of what that meant. We're much further along in our perspective about how businesses should think about social and environmental responsibility, thanks in no small part to the work of places like the Lauder Institute. It took me a while to learn those lessons, to begin to think about legacy. You have an opportunity to start to think about your legacy now. Our world is facing challenges on so many fronts. We are racially and politically divided, to say the least. Your legacy can be one of just going with the flow of finding ways to make a living wherever the money is best, or you can take a bigger perspective and leave a legacy of solving the biggest challenges we face, not just profiting off of them. In closing, I want to share a personal story with you. I have a daughter, Blair, who was 16 years old. Her mother, my wife, passed away when Blair was just 11. In the wake of her death, I worried about what it would mean for my daughter to grow up without her mom. I questioned whether I'd be able to care for her in the ways she needed to be cared for. My daughter has proven to be resilient. One of the main reasons she has done so well is because of her mom's influence. She taught her how to be a young woman. She did all the things a great mother does, but she did something more, something that's harder to notice, but far more important. In a recent interview, I described it as smearing her DNA all over my daughter. My daughter is not strong just because of the little things her mother did to care for her, though they were important. My daughter is strong because of the ways her mother showed her how to be resilient, because of the million small things my wife did that rubbed off on her. So why do I share that with you? Because in its own way, that is what the Lauder Institute is all about. It's about shaping us for the challenges that lie ahead. They create an environment where we can be the best of who we are, and it can rub off on others. They plant the seeds of tenacity, of passion, of perspective. And they do it with one expectation, that you will go out and do likewise, that you will carry what you learn here and share it with the people you encounter, that you will inspire future generations to build on the legacy you leave behind. just like Wilbert and Ahmad did for me, just like my wife did for our daughter, just like Lauder has done for each of us. My very best to you, class of 2021, and congratulations again.